Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're taking a fascinating journey straight into the invisible infrastructure that makes global commerce, well, actually work. You know, we rely on it literally every single day, yet most of us never even see the incredible machinery operating just beneath the surface. Let's get right into it.
Okay, let's dive into this. How exactly does a single dollar, or euro, or yen for that matter, physically move from a buyer in one country to a seller in a completely different one? I mean, it seems instantaneous to us, right? Maybe just a quick click of a button on a screen, but underneath that click, there's a massive, incredibly complex operational engine, and it's working flawlessly to make absolutely sure that transaction securely crosses the globe.
Here's our quick roadmap to break down this giant machine step by step. We'll be looking at 1. Bridging the trust gap, 2. Translating global value, 3. The settlement engine, and finally, 4. The guardrails of global finance.
Let's kick things off with Section 1, Bridging the Trust Gap Through Trade Finance.
Now, before we even start talking about complex technology or currency systems, we have to realize that all international trade starts with a very, very human problem, and that is a fundamental lack of trust between strangers who are separated by thousands of miles, not to mention international borders. And this brilliantly illustrates that exact human dilemma. Just look at these two completely opposing yet very real fears that private individuals face when trying to do business internationally. On one side, you've got the exporter's fear. Imagine shipping huge crates of valuable goods across the ocean and, well, never seeing a dime for it. Terrifying, right? But on the flip side, there's the importer's fear, sending a massive payment overseas and then never actually receiving your order. So how do you do business when neither party wants to take that massive first leap of faith?
Well, the answer is something called a letter of credit. Think of it as a financial instrument where a bank essentially steps onto the field to act as a trusted referee. Instead of the exporter relying solely on some unknown buyer's promise, they get to rely on a bank's ironclad commitment to pay. But, there's a catch. That payment is only released provided that strict documentation requirements, things like bills of lading or quality certificates, are completely met. What this does is it essentially shifts the credit risk entirely away from everyday private individuals and places it squarely on the shoulders of heavily regulated financial institutions. It's a real game changer.
And what I absolutely love about this is that it's not some brand new tech invention. Actually, scratch that, it's quite the opposite. These so-called documentary credits have been standardized by the International Chamber of Commerce and have been expanding global trade safety since the days of 19th century British financial leadership. So yeah, it's a century-old solution that continues to make the world of global trade safe and predictable even today.
Let's move to and see how this builds into Section 2, Translating Global Value, which is all about currency conversion.
Okay, so we've solved the trust issue between buyer and seller. But now we hit another wall. Nations simply don't speak the same monetary language. Because there's no single national currency that functions absolutely everywhere in the world, every single international transaction requires a translation system. Currency conversion isn't just, some math equation you do at a kiosk at the airport. No, it's the absolutely crucial structural bridge that allows value to move efficiently across entirely different monetary worlds. Without it, global commerce would literally grind to a halt.
It's actually really fascinating to trace how we got here. Back in the early era, merchants literally traded physical gold and silver to translate value from one kingdom to the next. Fast forward to the mid-20th century, and we relied on fixed exchange rates under the Bretton Woods system. But the whole game changed fundamentally in 1971. That year marked the shift to our modern floating system. And today, we rely on a decentralized 24-hour electronic foreign exchange network where currency values fluctuate continuously based entirely on global supply and demand. And those exchange rates, they are so much more than just flashing numbers on a screen. They actually represent relative purchasing power. They're basically real-time, living reflections of a nation's economic health, constantly being shaped by shifting interest rates, inflation levels, and of course, political stability. So when you watch a currency tick up or down on the Forex market, you are quite literally watching the world assess a nation's vital signs in real time. It's pretty wild when you think about it like that.
All right, let's jump into Section 3, the settlement engine, focusing on clearing systems.
Now, if exchange rates determine the value of the money being moved, it's the clearing and settlement systems that ensure the absolute finality of the actual transfer. So the crucial point is understanding exactly how banks handle the staggering volume of global finance without their computer systems completely breaking down. They use a brilliant concept called net settlement. Basically, this means instead of sending a separate wire for every single trade, which would be a total nightmare, they aggregate millions of individual trades and only transfer the final net difference at the end of the day. This vastly improves the efficiency of the entire global network.
Let's break that down with a super relatable analogy. Imagine individual settlement is like a huge group dinner, but everyone hands cash to each other for every single bite of shared food. Highly inefficient, right? Just a mess. Well, net settlement is what we actually do at the end of the meal, calculating only the final difference, splitting that massive restaurant bill, and making just one or two final payments to settle the whole table's debt. It's the exact same logic, just scaled up to trillions of dollars between global banks.
But as you can imagine, with trillions of dollars moving across different time zones, there's a terrifying systemic risk hidden in the timing. It's called Hurst risk. This is the very real danger that one party delivers their currency, doing exactly what they promised, but because of a time zone delay, the other bank suddenly fails before returning the equivalent funds. If these global settlements aren't perfectly synchronized, the whole chain could literally collapse overnight.
To prevent that total nightmare scenario, we rely on specialized institutions like CLS Bank, which by the way stands for Continuous Linked Settlement, and Central Bank Real-Time Gross Settlement, or RTGS systems. They make absolutely sure these massive transfers are completed safely, accurately, and simultaneously. This invisible plumbing is exactly what ensures a financial promise made in one time zone is safely fulfilled in another, without dropping the ball anywhere in between.
And that brings us to our final part, Section 4, the guardrails of global finance, looking at risks and compliance.
Because let's face it, moving trillions of dollars daily across borders isn't just some operational or technical challenge. Ultimately, it is a massive exercise in managing extreme uncertainty. There are three specific types of danger that constantly threaten the integrity of this global financial system. First up is credit risk, the simple, stark reality that a participating bank might just fail. Next is market risk, the danger that exchange rates might suddenly shift against you mid-transaction. And finally, operational risk, the ever-present threat that these incredibly complex digital systems might just break, go offline, or get compromised.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the intensely layered compliance framework banks must meticulously navigate to protect both themselves and the system as a whole. It starts at Step 1 with AML, or anti-money laundering, and KYC, Know Your Customer protocols, which are just there to verify who is actually sending the money. Then, it moves to Step 2 with incredibly strict international guidelines set by the FATF, the Financial Action Task Force. And it's all backed up by Step 3, Basel III capital requirements. These basically mandate that banks actually hold enough capital in reserve to absorb massive losses during a crisis. It's a whole lot of safety nets.
So, think of these compliance frameworks as essentially the air traffic control of global money. They prevent systemic collisions and totally cut off avenues for financial crime. But impartially speaking, modern compliance also functions actively as a major geopolitical tool. Governments and international bodies enforce sanctions right through these very same banking channels, using them to effectively restrict and monitor prohibited trade. It's a truly fascinating intersection where international finance meets global diplomacy.
So when you step back and look at the whole picture we've built today, international transactions really are a triumph of human coordination. I mean, we've built a system that brilliantly relies on trust substitution via letters of credit, real-time Forex translation to let us speak the same monetary language, and precision settlement systems to guarantee the math is absolutely perfect. These interconnected parts work together flawlessly, 24/7, so that modern life and global commerce can happen at the speed of light. It's honestly incredible.
But, this incredible infrastructure still leaves us with one massive lingering question. If the plumbing works for everyone, why do some currencies hold their immense value while others completely collapse? It's a fascinating macroeconomic puzzle about currency valuation, and I want you to think about that until our next deep dive. Thanks for exploring the mechanisms of global exchange with me today, and I'll see you on the next one.